Hello guys, how are you doing? My name's 𝐒𝐢𝐦 and it's been a lot of fun reviewing HighFleet, playing HighFleet, creating a few little tutorials and just talking with other people who play the game and are really passionate about the game, really excited about the game, and really getting into the game. It's brilliant. If you haven't already joined the HighFleet Discord on the MicroPros Discord, please do head on over there. Fantastic community, everyone's really nice and really chatty, and on the most part, we're talking 90% or more of people who have come and watched my videos have been polite or helpful. They've given some advice, they've shared discoveries that they've made, and that's fantastic. That's exactly what I was hoping would happen, and it's really great. And I'm working on an advanced tutorial which is going to have all of the things that I've learned and experienced during my Let's Play series, which you can go and see over on 𝐒𝐢𝐦, but also it's got loads of suggestions and ideas that people have sort of sent to me in comments and messages and stuff that I hadn't thought about myself. These are brilliant ideas. Now, I can't thank everyone who's made these recommendations, because there are so many, and multiple people have made the same suggestion as well. But you know, my thanks goes out to everybody, and it's like a community-led thing, this. So when my final tutorial comes out, my advanced tutorial, please don't stop chucking good ideas at it, because you know, the more good ideas we have and the more interesting implementations we can discover, the better. But with that very long intro out the way, this is my list of improvements that I'd like to request from HighFleet, and hopefully one day, if possible, maybe Constantine can take a look at this and maybe consider some of these ideas of mine and implement them into the game. Equally, if you've got any other ideas or better ideas than mine, or alternatives, you know, slight tweaks of my own ideas, please don't stop letting me know your ideas in the comment section. It's brilliant. And if I've got any way of communicating that with the devs directly, I will pass it on. So without further ado, that's a very long introduction, let's get on. First thing I'd like to request is the ability to pick the weather, the location, and the enemies, the number of and the type of enemies that we can fight against in the shipyard. When you test it, when you create a ship and you're testing it, you want to be able to test it against the biggest, hardest ships, and maybe you want, you know, 10 of the hardest ships, maybe you want 10 of the biggest ships, who knows, 10 of the fastest ships. There's a whole area there that's completely unutilized. If you build a ship, you really want to test it out and see how good it is against certain situations. At the moment we can't do that, but it'd be really great if that was added to the game. In addition to that, every time I come to a battle, I would really like to be able to click on the ships in my fleet. I know you can order them, but I'd actually like to be able to click on the ships available in my fleet so I can see what damage they've taken, what weapons they've got available to them, what state and condition the guns are in, etc. If there are any issues with that craft before I go into battle, I really would like to be able to see that before the battle starts. I think that's something that could be implemented, because obviously it exists in the game, it's just not accessible just before you start a fight. I've noticed, and I'm assuming this is a bug, I mean, it has to be a bug, it makes no sense the way it is, but when you split a task force from the main fleet and both have radar capability, you'll notice that the radars are not independent. So let's say I've got one crew searching the ground for hidden cities, for example, and the other crew are searching the sky. If I switch that dial on either one, it flicks the other one as well, so that they're not independent of each other. So any changes you make on the extended fleet, the strike force, will incur on the main fleet as well. It's got to be a bug. It makes no sense the way it is, but just in case it was intended to be that way, which I can't imagine for a minute it was, then I would like to see that changed. I'd also quite like every single ship to have its own display interface, if that makes sense. I mean, it doesn't have to be vastly different, but every time I'm in a different ship, it would be nice if I felt like I was in that ship. That's quite a big change and request. Yeah, I mean, these are not things that need to be in the game. These are kind of wants and wish lists mostly. But I would love to see that, so that every aircraft has its own slightly unique, different colour, different layout, different design than the other, so you feel like you're flying in different aircraft. When you're in a battle, the battle interface, and I'm talking about the ship screen that's in the bottom left-hand corner, the enemy screen that's in the bottom right-hand corner, and of course the ammo and status of your current ship that's up in the top left, which constantly pops out and covers me when I'm trying to avoid missiles and gets me killed. I would like to see some options there. I would like to see the option to have those whole systems made smaller, or effectively minimize it. This might be something that comes with mods in time, but I'd also like the ability to remove it completely. I don't actually think on the harder setting we need to have those screens there at all. If you can't figure out where the weak spots are on a ship and you can't fight your way through it without having to look at that little screen in the bottom right hand corner, you probably shouldn't be playing on hard mode. Equally, if you can't figure out what weapons you've got selected, I mean, if that was minimised and there was just a small slither at the top there that allowed you to see what weapon you've currently got, you know, whether you're firing high explosive, armour piercing, etc., that would be great. But yeah, just some control over the battle interface I think would be great, because sometimes it does get in the way. In the same sort of vein, if you will, the retreat area, I'd like to see the option, at least, to remove that to be a button bind, because I accidentally keep leaving battles when I'm trying to fight. It's happened a few times. My most recent video that I put up of my monster aircraft carrier, I accidentally flew into the retreat area purely because, you know, the explosions that are going on with that ship. I mean, that's a monster of a ship. The explosions that are going on there, I can't even see where the retreat area is. It's completely obscured by smoke and explosions, etc. So just having the option to have that on a bind button would be good. I mean, you know, if you hit a retreat button and there was like a 10-second countdown or something like that, that would be fine. I mean, that still gives you the, oh my god, I've got to survive for 10 seconds thing, which is kind of why it's on the screen, because you've got to get from one side to the other. So I think that would work, but I'm sure not everybody would want that, so it would have to be an option. Now, on the map, there are a lot of things that are controlled with the right mouse click, but predominantly my biggest problem here is the right click to move the fleet. So you right click on the map somewhere and the fleet takes off and it flies in that direction. Now personally, again, this has to be an option, I would like or prefer the ability to have taking off and flying manual. So it's fine that with the right mouse click button I set my destination, but the bloody fleet doesn't take off until I lift up the lever and make it, you know, literally make it lift off and take off and go. I would much rather that all become manual, because there's a few times when it always seems to happen when I have no fuel. I accidentally right click on the map and the whole fleet takes off, moves 3 feet outside of the city, and I've got no fuel to go anywhere else other than be in that city, and I cannot get them to go back into the city. It's a real pain in the ass. So if you could just make that whole process manual instead of automated, then that problem would go away for me completely. Another thing, talking about the map, I love the fact that you can write on the map and you can draw arrows on the map and you can sort of put circles on the map and you can put details on the map. I love that. It's brilliant. All I'm asking in that regard are 4 different colours. A black, a white, a red, a blue. That's it. That way I can track enemy convoys, I can make my own travel route plans, and I can track like super carriers and aircraft carriers, missile carriers and that. I can track all of that information in different colours and then I don't get confused. That's all I'm asking. I think that would be fantastic. It would really add a lot to the game. 4 colours. That's all we need, really. And I also feel like sometimes some of the ships overheat, the engines overheat far too quickly. Now, it does appear to be the case that if a ship has been damaged in a previous fight, maybe the engine isn't running at 100%, it'll overheat quicker. That's all well and good, and it sort of comes back to my second point that I made today, that I really wish I could look at the ship in detail before I went into a fight. Now maybe, you know, if someone attacks you unexpectedly, you don't get time to check your ship, but if you're about to go into a battle, you kind of want to know what your ship status is. And if one of the engines are broken, then you can put that further back in the list. But in addition to that, I think something that could be added to the shipyard, and I think there's a lot more could be added to the shipyard in all honesty. I think there's a lot more guns, a lot more defensive options, a lot more systems and building mechanics could be added over time. But the one that I'd like to see first of all is a heat sink option for the engines that improves cooldown time. Now obviously it's going to be heavy, it's going to reduce your thrust to weight ratio, it's going to be expensive, all these kind of things. It's not going to be a cheat, as it were, it's going to be a logical solution to an existing problem. If this was a real world situation and your engine's overheated all the time, somebody somewhere would be working very hard on a way to reduce the heat of your engines quicker. Simple as that. I don't want it to be OP, I just want the option to be able to control it a little better. Fine if they get hot just as quick as they always do, I just want them to cool down a bit quicker. Getting hot, no problem, cooling down is the issue I find. When you've got one little ship up against 4 or 5 bigger ships, the only thing you've got going for you is your manoeuvrability, and if that's completely gone, then your ship is completely useless. But if you just pay a little bit extra, it's another thing to look after, another thing to protect and repair and maintain. You know, that heatsink option, it could really change the game a little bit, and I think in a good way. And finally, the fighting area itself. I think a lot of people have said this, we just want it to be bigger. I mean, it's great as it is, but maybe if it was twice the size that it is, that would be perfect. Or even 50% higher, 50% wider. I think that would be wonderful. It would open things up a lot more, especially when you've got a couple of big ships in there fighting. And one thing I noticed as well is that when ships go off the screen, so say you're flying low to the ground and they're high up in the air, you can't see them, you can't hit them, you can guess where they are because of the arrows, you can have a pot shot at them, but their accuracy does not seem to waver at all. That's something that maybe needs to be looked at, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm all up for a bloody good fight, and quite often the fights in this game are bloody good, and you have to work hard to win. So, I mean, there's not much wrong with the fight area. I just think everyone kind of wants to see it a little bit bigger. And I guess the other thing is, you know, we need to have keybind options. This is like an 11th one that just popped in my head that should have been number 1 on my list, really. We need to be able to change resolution of the game. We need 4K coverage. I want to be able to play 4K Ultra HD. I record in 4K Ultra HD, but actually what I'm playing is 1080p. So we need to have these improvements. I mean, this is actually probably the most important thing, is the resolution capability and the ability to change keybinds, etc. But other than that, I mean, this is a quality game. I think anyone who's seen me play it knows that I love this game, and anyone who's watching this video probably loves this game. So hopefully it will be received well by the community, by you guys out there, and it will be received well by 𝗦𝘂𝗯𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀, who I'll take this opportunity to say thank you very much for creating HighFleet. It's brilliant, I love it. And these are just some recommendations and ideas that, you know, I've spent, I don't know, 50 hours in the game, something like that. And during those 50 hours, these are the things that kind of rub against me a little bit on a consistent basis. So yeah, just being able to tweak these things and improve these areas, I think would just add oodles to the game. I suppose one last one that's just popped into my head. Let's get some mod support in there, some proper, you know, maybe even Steam Workshop support, something like that, something outside of Steam if necessary. But you know, I'd love to be able to share my ships with you guys, and you know, look at your ships as well. I know a lot of you out there are kind of really, excuse the term, but you kind of, most of you out there are kind of really quite horny for building small, fast, highly manoeuvrable ships. I tend to go, well, I quite often start with a small manoeuvrable ship, but then I sort of build it up and it just gets better, and I build these colossal big mama ships that just destroy everything. And I really like them, The recent one I built, the aircraft carrier, it's a monster. So much of a monster that when you're fighting against 10 AI, not only is it easy, like you don't have to be good at the game, well, you have to be a little bit good at the game I suppose, you don't have to really try that hard because it's just such a powerful beast, but the explosions and everything going off on the screen, it does make the game crash because it's like full on. But anyway, this has been a very impromptu, relaxed, probably over hyper-extended video, which I'm going to bring to a close right now. Thank you for watching, and please give me your ideas, suggestions and feedback in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, bye for now.